So this is the New Paltz Governmental Consolidation Study Public Outreach Committee. And we have an agenda which you could have seen posted on the village website today. And so we'll be going through that this evening. At the outset, let me say that as we do at the beginning of each of these meetings, we're asking anyone who has any interest in all to come down and listen, but even more than that, to come down and participate. Our job is to get the word out to the public about what's happening on consolidation, and we have a lot of ways to do that, so many hands make light work, so please give us a call or come. And you'll see that these meetings are posted as to when they're going to be on our website in the village, and I suppose in the town as well as the village Facebook page. So we do have a new member to welcome tonight. Welcome.
Well, I was just a visitor.
Well, remember, you know, there's no initiation or anything.
Well, there's a lot of work, and I do think that you make a great point to do that. People, I mean, you just can't sit in the parks and walk on the street and just voice an opinion. You have to go into a forum and voice an opinion, and if you feel strong enough about it, you should come.
Yeah, and we appreciate you
Yeah.
coming. So the first thing we have on the agenda is to approve the minutes of October 9. The minutes are usually sent by Trustee Bosco at the end of a meeting to everyone who's on the committee that night, and so everyone's had them since the day of the last meeting. Well, do we have two sets to approve, October 9 and December 17?
I think that,
Or it just should be this on the agenda is the meeting minutes of December 17th.
yeah, I think just the
Okay.
17th.
Okay. So do you want to move to approve them?
I will move to approve them,
I'll
the
second
minutes
that.
I wrote.
You stand behind them?
I do indeed.
So all in favor?
Aye.
You can vote, you're an official member.
Aye.
It's unanimous, okay. So we have things in two categories: unfinished business, things that we've talked about before and they're working on, and then things that are new for us tonight. So the first thing on unfinished business is an update on the village and town websites, Google Docs, our email address for answering questions, and Facebook. So do you want to take any of those, and I'll do the others you don't take?
Sure. I actually have not great news about the Google Docs thing because
Yeah.
I was trying to answer these emails
Yeah.
on the New Paltz Consolidation questions at Gmail. And I tried to go on the village website to look at these Google Docs and tried to pull up the finance committee report, and it told me that I had to be approved to look at this.
Okay, so we'll have
So
to
I
ask
don't know
Brian
if-
what we can do about that.
Yeah, I mean, I know that in terms of Google Docs, that is kind of standard operation that you have to be invited or approved, but these are supposed to be like public Google documents
Mhm.
that anybody can look at, so I don't know exactly what the process is there.
So
or
maybe
if-
maybe
if
we just need to just have one step. Once you're approved, that's forever, so.
It is
So
forever,
maybe we
yeah.
can do it through the clerk's office, just to have them call and get
I mean, all they have to do
approved the
is
first time.
click on it, and
And-
then it sends a message automatically to the clerk.
Yeah, and the reason we have Google Docs is because the website for the village is under construction, and we've had quite a bit of debate at the village board meetings about how we can handle that. And there is a contractor who is working on it, but it's been delayed and it's taking a long time. So Trustee Kimbas came up with this idea because it's important that we have documents for everyone to read now rather than wait a few months. So this is brand new, and obviously we have a few wrinkles to work out, but we'll try to make it user friendly so that everyone can at their leisure look at all these documents. So I know that the village clerk has been putting documents on there and will continue to do that. Such things as the initial study done by the Fairweather Consulting with the steering committee, the efficiency project, it's a really long report, but for those who don't want to read the whole report, there's also a final project summary, and they'll be up there for you to read, to have background when you're looking at then the committee reports and the committee meetings, all of which have been taped, and they're available to you if you want to look at them. So Google Docs needs
Peter also
improvement.
put the report back on his website
Right.
in order so that people, if they have trouble accessing it from the village website, they can go to the Fairweather website and access it through that.
And that's Fairweather Consulting, which you can Google.
Yes, I was going to say look up the.
So the village website, there are documents and notices on there about when meetings will occur. And the same thing with the village Facebook page. You'll have to stroll through there to find what it is you're interested in, but they're there as well.
It is fairweatherconsulting.com.
Okay.
Easy enough.
And then the last thing is you have the email address. Do you want to just for the
NP consolidation questions at gmail.com.
okay, why don't you say that one more time?
NP consolidation questions at gmail.com.
Right, now this committee, mostly Ariana at the moment, is responsible for taking those questions off, but this committee will not, unless it's very straightforward question. Come on in, have a seat. We'll even give you an agenda package here.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure, well, we're all in this together, have a seat.
You're welcome to join us at the table if you
Yeah,
like to.
sure.
Are you sure? I'm just a
No.
member of the public here. All right.
So are we.
Well, good, I understand that, thank you.
Have we been getting a lot of questions on there yet?
My name's
Or how-
Paul Brown.
Yeah, hi Paul, I heard you last night, Tony.
Tony,
Nice to meet you.
how are you? What's the last name?
Saraceno.
Oh, how are you? How are you?
We have not been getting that many questions actually. There were 2 emails that I looked at today. Other than that, it's been pretty bare on the NP consolidation questions at Gmail. I would enjoy it if more people sent questions in. I know that it has been in the paper 2 weeks in a row now.
The
So
questions?
no, the email address. So people, it is now being more widely publicized that people
Can we have the questions put in the New Falls Times with our answers?
Well, yes and no. We can, but we're gonna get to that, what the paper is giving us, but
They give us a box.
these questions that are being asked one at a time, and as I was saying that they come through this committee, but this committee doesn't necessarily answer them. Because we need the expertise of, depending on what the question is, and we'll get the answer out. But if you look at the next thing on the agenda, we have some members of the public that have asked a long list of questions, and they're just coming through in the minutes of the meeting to us now. And we have those by email, and we have them in person at meetings. So we will be getting all those questions, some of which are complicated, and getting answers. So we plan to have up on this Google Docs, once we get it operating the way we want, the questions and the answers. And then with the Gmail account, if they don't think that's an accurate answer, they think there's more to it, then they can respond. So this is just an attempt to get all the information out that we can.
Yeah, just for everyone to know, we got the minutes of the January 15th meeting today at 4:15 p.m. So and that's the meeting where we began taking questions on the Finance Committee report in particular. So there were a number of questions that some of them were emailed to us, but most of them were just asked in that meeting. So now that we have this set of minutes, it can be further publicized.
I think one of the things that, as I've just been sitting on the outside and watching what's
Sure.
been going on, this appears to be one of the things I think a lot of the constituents have been upset about is they feel that or maybe it's just an invalid argument, but that we've been moving too quickly. So what's really interesting with this is if it's going to be a long process, or it's going to be longer than we think, I think it would be better efficient for us if we found a way to publish the answers in the Times, only because it would prevent people from asking the same, because you're only answering one person if you do it on the Gmail. And who knows who they're sharing with, maybe nobody.
Well, when I say the Google Docs, the fact that they ask a question, they'll be answered specifically, but these will be listed with the rest of the questions up there, which will be part of the record. But the thing is, there's gonna be a lot of questions. There might be 400 questions and they'll all be up there with answers, but people have to
I
stroll
think we
through
could,
it,
you know, maybe there's some redundancy in some of the questions and you can
Yeah.
consolidate them.
Well, we will, best we can, but we don't wanna be accused of not.
Then those you
we have
answer
nothing to hide
one-on-one.
here.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see why we couldn't. I mean, certainly some questions might be, for personal clarification and understanding, but there are other questions that are more broad that I don't see why we couldn't put those in the New Paltz Times.
You know, if it goes for a
even
long
if we have a limited
Yeah.
space.
If it goes for a long time, people get involved at different speeds and at different times. Somebody's involved in January and asks a question, and then someone new gets involved in April and they ask the same question. Because this is gonna be a longer process, and if it's gonna be 5 or 6 more months, you're gonna have different people involved at different times.
Mhm.
Why answer the same question for you? Hopefully they'll read the
Well,
the
well, the
Times
one,
to
the
an
one,
extent.
we met with the paper, and they graciously agreed to give us a box, each week, and we can, put what's happening, we can put our Gmail questions part in there, so people can always look and know where they have to write, and we could put a certain quantity of questions in there. So, if people ask 30 questions, we wouldn't have room to list those and answer them every week, because the paper isn't able to give us that much space.
I like it. I think it's a story. I think it should be a question and answer story, and I think it should be sat down maybe even once a month, where you were interviewed and asked the 30 questions that we took, and it was a question, and your answer was right there, or our answer, or
Okay,
whatever.
and I think we'll also, when we get to the TV part down here, these are all kind of interwoven, we're gonna talk about putting some presentations on the Channel 23, which will also can go up on the internet, so that, and they'll show them more than once with the key questions and
I hope they watch
interpretation.
the channel. See, I think the Times is the best.
Well, I agree with you, we're gonna put all that they'll allow us to in there,
Yeah.
and I think they'll try to work with us in press releases, and they will put in some articles.
I hope so. I can't think of anything more important. I don't want to take any ink away from a high school kid going to college, but I can't think of anything more important than what's on the table right here.
Well, we agree with you, but we're not the ones who publish the paper, and also hopefully the other papers in the area will, get on board with this to an extent. So on the answers to the questions, the initial job is gonna take a while, because there's a bulk of questions that we got at once, and then after we get through those, then it won't take as much time. And some of them are probably gonna be back and forth a few times, because the people, may
Yeah.
not be satisfied with the answer and they want more details or something. So we're gonna do the best we can to answer. And then the next thing on the agenda is the update of the weekly consolidation presentation, goes to what you're saying.
Mm.
They have agreed to do that, it's just, how much space do we have? And, so far, we've been putting things in, because we just started on it, if you wanna be involved with that.
If you need,
Welcome to the crowd.
Okay.
Because
We
our,
do need-
our job is not to push a particular opinion, but just to get the information out there and
Sure.
answer the questions the best we can. And the collective genius is gonna be such, they're gonna ask questions that we hadn't thought about and we ought to think about, and so hopefully this process will.
I do
get
think
us
the
to where we
questions
need
are
to
so
go.
important to get answered in that. Well, I think they should give you a page once a month, a full page of question and answers that you can answer, just general questions. Because
All I can
there's
say
so
is
much.
no, we ought to ask them,
I'll ask them tomorrow. I haven't talked to Aaron and Rich, it's fine. Because because then the questions get asked more than once, and it's a moving target, and you get stuck answering them again, and I just find it to be, and there's so much, I sit around town quite a bit, I walk it constantly, and I'm a real New Paltzian now. And I hear so many opinions and guesswork and views, and everybody's got a view, because we're an intellectual town. So, and I just like to think that this really has to be more out front. I mean, you get a nice story every day, and you get the usual folks writing in their editorials. And believe it or not, those editorials are how most people got the news, and that's how I got the news.
Mhm.
Is reading of what Jeff Logan has to say, or reading what Steve Greenfield has to say. Not that they're invalid or valid. That's not the point. I'm reading their points of views.
When you say editorials,
You mean letters to the
Letters to
editor?
Letters to the editors. I call them an editorial because they're writing it as if they
op-ed pieces, if you
Yeah,
will.
it's not the post, but I mean, you know what I'm saying. It's
Well, I
just
think one of the
so strong.
One of the things to keep in mind, though, is that this committee hasn't. Well, we wanted to get the basic documents and the study out on the website so people could have the background they wanted, but until recently, there hasn't been the reports of the committees to be fodder for the discussion. So now we have that. So now we have this committee has to go into full gear because now's the time when everyone has to focus on what's specifically being proposed and have their comments and maybe suggestions how to change it or whatever.
An interesting backlash that had happened is when a date was announced for a vote for consolidation, everybody was surprised, and it's like it snuck up on people. But it really didn't happen that quickly. But people weren't involved in the process, so all of a sudden, it looked like it was happening faster than they thought.
Yeah, well,
And that's really the laziness of the folks in the town. We need, but this is how we've got to make them less lazy and make it easier for them.
Right,
So
absolutely.
that's
Well,
why-
I mean, I also think, if I talk about the date and when the date is set, I mean, obviously, that the date that was printed on the front page of the paper, March 19th, back in, that's
October.
obviously not the date of the
Anymore,
vote. Well, but it wasn't then either, though. It just was the date that was, one person was really talking about it being that date. And I think that not everybody, there was no vote taken on that being the date.
And I think the intent wasn't an evil intent. I think
No,
the
I
intent
don't think
was
that.
if you're going to be able to get $1 million from the government to help you consolidate on an annual basis, the date that was chosen is the date by when you'd have to do something for
To get
able
that
to
money
get the money
this
for this year.
Right.
And then it became clear after a short, discussion back and forth that, well, that's a goal that you're highly unlikely to meet that. So it wasn't, then people got the impression, well, we're trying to push this through, but and maybe there are a few people trying to do that, but I don't think that the boards feel
Collectively.
that way.
Yeah.
That the boards want everything to come out because they want it to be something positive that hopefully everyone will wanna vote
Yeah.
for, so
I
we
agree.
need to work on it to get that.
I think as an outreach committee, that's the best thing that almost can't really share your opinion if you're almost in favor or non-favor. You're only in favor of getting all the information out in a timely, effective, efficient manner.
Well, that's the job of this committee. I mean, everyone probably will have their own opinion when
Yeah.
they hear all the facts, and as they should when they vote and all that, but right now, that's not our job.
No, I understand.
In your packet there is, just for information, there is the report that Ariana and I gave when they had, the committees were to report to the joint boards as to their work and so forth and what they came up with. And we have had several meetings, and by the way, when you get the minutes, correct me if I'm wrong, they will be cumulative. So when you get the minutes midnight tonight from today, it'll have every meeting that we ever had in a row, so you can refer to them. Is that
Well,
right?
I don't have my laptop. I have my
Oh, okay.
this new thing, so I
Oh.
can do that because I have all those minutes. I just don't have them on this when I
Okay,
send this.
okay. Well, okay, so.
That will continue to be the case
And-
once this is
And also,
cumulative
we'll put
minutes.
those on the Google Docs, so that if you wanna see what we did the first time, right up till now, it's all there.
I'm gonna ask an embarrassing question for the town,
Sure.
as the town. Channel 23,
Yes.
I have DirecTV,
Mm-hmm.
so, I don't have any idea.
Do you
how
have a
to find-
computer?
Yeah, that's.
Okay, well, there are people who have neither, and that's a problem,
Yeah.
but, so we have Channel 23, there's, the village and town have a joint committee that operates that and deals with Time Warner Cable. So people have Time Warner Cable, New Falls get it on Channel 23, and there's other issues about Channel
Yeah.
23, but
Understand.
Also, now these are being, if I'm not mistaken, streamed live on the internet through a site so that you can dial in on your computer and look at all of these just on your computer. Now the village board meetings, I don't believe that's being done. Town board meetings are, but this process is all on there to my knowledge.
Okay.
I don't look at them on my computer. I've been through them all live, and it's enough for me.
I know what you mean.
So anyway, if you want to see what we reported to the joint boards as to our committee's activity, you have a copy of the report there. The next thing on here about local bulletin boards and posters, I was hoping that Amanda Sistenstein would be here. She was a member of the committee and has been working with us. And that's been, I think, it was one of her things that we ought to have reports that are actually posted places around the town and the village, so people who may
Post
not,
office, library.
wherever, you know, we can get a bulletin board and also put some posters up about things that are coming. So that hasn't happened yet, but that's on the list, and I was hoping that she might have some input tonight on that, because we're coming up quickly on a time when we could use that.
You know, an interesting thing to tie that to on email notifications is to get with the New Paltz Baseball or the YBA in town and have them post the message when they send out their posting, because 700 families get that.
Yeah, I think as long as they consent to do
just tie
that,
it
that's
into
fine,
I
but,
don't think they'd have a problem. They're not taking a position.
well, I'm just saying that we can't take people's email and send it to them. I mean, we could find out what they are, but without their permission, we're not gonna do that. Now, if an organization sends it out and they're willing to put it on there, that'd be
Yeah, that's what
fine.
I-
Are you involved with that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. You know the people who have the
Yeah.
you have the connections.
I wouldn't say I'm well liked there. I started a rival baseball league and they despise me for it. But I mean,
Other than that.
no, other than that, we're on really good terms. But I think but it doesn't matter their relationship with me,
Best
because
friends.
this is about the relationship with the town
Mhm.
and the village and getting information out. That's all that's important here.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think they would have an issue
Well,
doing it.
if you have the contact information, you can give it to one of us.
Stop bringing the pen. I'm gonna have to make a note on mine. No, I have to make a note on mine.
Okay, well, if you would, you know, there's nothing that we're gonna not follow up on if we possibly can.
I
So
just-
that's
yeah,
a great,
ever
that's a
avenue.
good idea, anything we can do. The last thing on the unfinished business list is the master contact list, which we had started to do and we are gonna continue to do, and that is the people who are involved with all of the committees to have their contact information. And as it'll be important to us, because when we get a question in, we need to know who we have to send it to get an answer, and then make sure we get an answer back. And so that information is important, and we'll get with the people who are on the joint umbrella committee to get us more of that information, now that we're really getting cracking on it. And by the way, if anyone has anything they want to say at any time, just break in. 'Cause I'll just keep drawing on. Under new business, Gale Gallery. Yes, sorry.
Could you just fill me in on the mission? Is it a written down mission of the outreach committee? Were you given a task, or have you created your own mission? So as people come and go, they can all kind of anchor on what the actual purpose is. That's one of the reasons I'm here, to learn what that
Sure.
is.
Well, whether there's an actual mission statement.
There was. I'm looking back in my notes. I do have them all, and I will send them out.
There we go.
But I am looking back to see if it was in here, because there was in the original forming of all of these committees, that there were 10 total. Each of them had a specific mission, and I
So
think
it's pretty
ours
general
was
for
pretty.
us.
Yeah, it was much less specific than, to find savings from consolidation. I think it was just methods, ways to disseminate the information to the community members.
It's an educational function to educate the public as to what could be done, what the committees are doing to answer the various questions, to provide an opportunity for them to ask questions. So the list of things that we want to do hopefully will cover everybody, and we got a few new ideas that we're going to talk about tonight.
All right. If I again, I appreciate what you said. I feel free to give your invitation, throw out an idea. And,
Sure.
my experience is that without a written mission that's fresh as of this meeting or your next meeting or our next meeting or the community's next meeting, there tends to be drift. That is, the people come in and out, and I see, and thank you for making me feel welcome. And frankly, having at the top of your agendas or a piece of paper so that you're so experienced, you've been at this for what, 2 years now?
At least. Yeah.
At least. So,
Well, not this committee, but I mean,
the whole
I was
issue.
going to I wasn't on that steering committee, but I've been following it for that long.
And you can observe if you watch the TV or just show up at the meetings. And I would agree with you, the only thing worse than being at a meeting is watching it again on TV.
Sure.
The 10 men and women of the government and a lot of the members of the committee, who are all good friends of mine, know so much that they've kind of left the community behind. But this is what I've been waiting for, and I've read a notice. By the way, on the Alice Andrews is on this committee, or she posted in a blog called New Paltz on Facebook, and that's where I saw. There's about 400 members of that blog,
Mm-hmm.
and anybody can join in New Paltz.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a joiner, so I wanted to follow it, but you have to join it. But,
Right.
but anybody could read it. But now, this is a fresh start, and I've listened to your comments to the meetings, and I understand, I believe what you want to do, what you, let me check that understanding though.
Okay.
Whatever the words are for your mission, is it similar to the role of the Board of Education, or particularly the school district, when they send out their newsletters, and I noticed there was a reference to BOCES in the school district.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
When they send out information on the budget,
Mm-hmm.
they, by law I believe, but they are assiduously observant of the role of information and education and facts. That is, they cannot, but of course there's always writing and words, but they should not ever put themselves in the position of appearing to have a point of view. Now, I don't mind if this committee has a point of view, but can you help me to understand, one, I don't want to leave the subject of mission until you've told me whether you think the idea has merit or not. But given that I believe it's your mission to write, what about this comparison to the role of the school board or the Board of Education?
It seems like an apt comparison for this committee. I mean, this committee is not a sales committee to try to sell one point of view or another. It's to put the information out. This was the study, this was the recommendation, these are the committees that were formed by the joint boards, and this is what's been happening. And this is what they've agreed to or are discussing. Do you have any opinions or questions? Let us know, and we'll disseminate them to the people who should know the answers and get back to them. And then if we actually have some deadlines or something that come up, to make sure that everybody knows that and put out the information. Yes, I would say that's right. I mean, whether we have personal opinions about things, that won't be part of this.
That sounds good. I mean, I was hoping to hear that, and that sounds reasonable to me.
Now, I think your point's well taken on the mission statement, and maybe before the next meeting we can come up with something and put it on the top of the agenda, and then people can say
Exactly.
if they like that.
Well, at least you'll know who wants to get in your boat or who doesn't.
Right.
And it's, being on many committees, and there's this morphing
Mm-hmm.
of a committee. It goes off in a direction, and they seem to forget what they get so tied up in there. I'm sure you've seen the same thing.
Oh, yes.
So the mission statement, if it's well done, and it only has to be a sentence or two, anchors them, and frankly will attract to you men and women in the community who want to follow that path.
Mm-hmm.
And those who don't will show by their lack of interest, because there won't be any avenue for their taking a side or pontificating or twisting the purpose of the committee to their own ends, which have nothing to do with your mission.
No, I agree with that, and I don't think we're gonna, I'm not gonna allow a debate on the merits of something other than the merits of should we send out a mailing or should we do a TV or how's the most effective way to do our
Right.
job, then we can debate,
Exactly.
but not the underlying issues. I mean, is that your understanding?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that was one of the biggest things from the beginning, when we first started meeting as this committee, the idea of getting non-biased information out there.
Great. I think that sounds good.
So we'll do that for next meeting.
Yeah, we do have a mission statement that we can,
Yeah, I don't think it's a long
look
mission.
up. No, it's,
And
The shorter the better.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
an explanation.
It might be just a
Sentence or
sentence.
two.
maybe, yeah, exactly.
That's more than enough.
So the first item under new business in your packets there, Ariana and I had an email from Gail Gowrie, who was to be a member of this committee, but had a lot of conflicts with being able to come to meetings, and so she didn't really think that she should be considered a member of the committee since she hadn't been able to be there, although I believe she's gotten copies of the minutes.
Yeah.
In any event, so she's not a member of the committee, and that's fine. But in sending us that information, she had two ideas that she suggested, both of which seemed to be good ones, and so that's why you have in your packet. One,
What?
Okay.
Nothing?
I
Do you want me to read it?
just stopped in to see if there was anything you wanted from the clerk's office as far as outreach, so I thought I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop in.
Oh, actually,
Sit down.
I've got a good question
Yes.
for you that I don't know if you
Sure, join us.
are aware of this or know the answer, but I tried to go on the Google Docs today, clicking on the village website, and it tells me that I need permission to do so.
That's new information for me, because
Okay.
we did a whole bunch of uploading today, but of course, because I'm an administrator, I can't see, no, I will figure it out.
Yeah.
because-
maybe we could have if that's the case, maybe we can publish a lot of places a simple procedure for them
No,
to
they
get,
have,
to get it approved, and it's
anybody
a
else-
one-time thing, just so.
nobody has said anything to me about it, but I'm gonna try
Okay.
to log on separately from home, like my home email, and see if that,
I tried to do it through the NP Consolidation questions at Gmail, in fact, because I was on there answering questions today, and it told me that I needed permission to look at the document, and so I clicked request permission, of course. So I don't know, you might have an email regarding that, but I was thinking that if this was a problem, we probably would have heard about it from somebody else before I tried to do it. So
I wasn't aware that, give me 1 second, I'm trying to bring up the village website right this second.
okay, cool.
Alright, so we'll continue to march while you're doing that.
Yeah, thanks for stopping in since it ended up
And by the end of the meeting, we have more.
useful.
That's
What is
that's just a photo of this, so you can keep it. On the first item that Gail had suggested is that a flyer brochure be sent, there's a flyer brochure that's sent by the school district prior to each year's vote on the budget, and that we consider using that as a model when we have information about the details of what's proposed, that we send that to everyone. And she suggests, it's done by BOCES and so forth. So I called the person at BOCES today who deals with this, and she's gonna check, but she doesn't think that probably that BOCES could do this for municipalities, because their mission is to serve the school districts, so probably they can't do that. But what happens if we wanted to do that? You have an outside vendor chosen to print it, and then you can, if we don't have a bulk mail permit,
We do not.
or the town doesn't have one, then we'll have
We
to
do not have a
we'll have to
bulk mail
we'll have to
permit.
purchase one for like $300, and then get the piece printed, and there's different prices. For example, if it was going to be a 4-page document that was nailed, printing on one that was done for 10,000 of them through BOCES. The printing was $992, and an 8-page one was $1,764. And then there's the postage, which if we had 7,500 pieces would be, around $600. So it's that kind of a number if we have that mailing. Now, she tells me from her records that there's 7,500 mailboxes in the New Paltz zip code. So one thing we'd have to find out from the town is there any other zip codes in the town? I don't think there's any other zip codes in the village.
I think Katie has an answer for this.
We do not have the bulk mailing permit. I checked with Nancy and Roseanne, and it is requiring some kind of sign-in, so I will go home and tool with it, and perhaps if somebody has a chance to because when I tool it, it'll only let me, I'll see it perfectly as the administrator.
Right.
If you have a chance later from an outside eye, if you can look at it and let me know if it's better, because I took down what we knew formerly as the piecemeal finance report and put it up as one consistent.
I saw that and I said, oh, this is great, and then I clicked on it and it told me I needed permission.
So I will actually leave and hopefully within the next hour or so I'll be tooling around with it, and so if you'll just double check it to look at it, let me see if you see anything, that would be appreciated.
If there's gonna be some initial, something that has to be done by someone who wants to use this, then we have to make
Get
it
the
as
word
simple
out.
as possible and get the word out so they won't be surprised and offended.
Right. I mean, even if the process is that somebody, because I know traditionally with Google Docs, even when I share them with people, if someone doesn't have a Gmail account, they have to respond to my share with a request for me to share it, and which is like, it's fairly ridiculous, but it's kind of just how it goes. And I do this with interns regularly, so I don't know if that's maybe just how it is because you have obvious access to it.
Right.
But and if that is the process, that's okay as long as we publicize.
Then we'll put it
that's
right
the
on the front
process.
page, right below the picture for the village, so that somebody will know that's all they have to do, and whomever would like is welcome to as much information as they would like.
Right.
And I will be on my way to see if I can tool with this.
Okay, so if
Well,
you'll let
thank
us
you.
know what the result of that is so that we can get it going right away,
Well, we'll know by
Everyone.
tonight, because I'll be logging on tonight to try to
Super.
tool with it.
Okay.
And
I'll try to just go on myself.
and just send me an email if you're consistent, because literally I'm gonna go home and log on, so if within 2 hours you can't get on, let me know and we'll work out a different solution.
Okay, well, thank you.
My pleasure, thank you very much.
Okay. So going back, and this is only initial information, but, so it's gonna cost roughly
Doesn't need permission.
from
so.
$2,000 to $3,000 to do a mailing. Now, this is what they call saturation bulk mailing. So there's 7,500 mailboxes in the New Paltz zip code, and they go out to everyone. There's no addresses on them. If you want addresses on them or have anything in particular, then you probably couldn't use the bulk mail the same way, and the postage would cost more. But there doesn't seem to be any reason not to send it just to all the mailboxes with no address on. And also, for somebody to print this, they need something called a high capacity sheet press to do that, and I don't believe there's anyone in New Paltz that has one.
Where do they get theirs?
Well, there's 3 on that list there. There's 3 vendors
Oh,
that
down
they've
there, I
used,
see.
and that doesn't say that that's all of them. We'll have to see how we're gonna do this if we decide to do that, who's gonna fund it, and if we have our procurement policy to work for, and so we need
Right.
further details. So I
Brian
guess
works for Cornerstone. He should be able to figure all this stuff
I
out.
asked about SUNY New Paltz, and BOCES itself has presses, but I don't think for that kind of a bulk project, you can't get it done inexpensively
Right.
as using one of these other ones. So that's the raw data. So I guess the question is, when we get to the point where we have, a firm proposal, and there's certain information we want to get out to everyone, do you think it's worth doing, and should we pursue with the 2 boards for funding to send one piece, whether it be 4 pages or 8 pages, to the public for this explanation.
Well, I think I mean we definitely have. I mean, I was working on this earlier. You know, just some of the points of, you know, efficiency or things that, you know, seem you know, they are not the financial pieces of this basically, but things that we've accepted and stuff that we've started to talk about in our more recent joint meeting.
Governance part.
Yeah, the governance part. You know, like the idea that if we move towards a village form of government, it is nonpartisan elections, and since that's the recommendation, we would go towards nonpartisan elections, and that's like something that's inherent in a village form of government. Or the idea that we would keep our volunteer fire department, and that part of the idea of a village form of government is that we can have a volunteer fire department, whereas if you move towards a town form of government, you would have to have fire districts. Like, just kind of this very general information. I started putting some of that kind of stuff together, and I think that's the type of thing. I mean, and maybe, you know, we're not ready for this just yet.
I would think
but
we're
I
not.
would think that that's some of the stuff that we would like to include in this. But
I mean, you can only do one. It's
Well-
just too it wouldn't be
well-
cost effective, so you have to have the timing of it right, probably right, like you said, Stu, before a vote. Then,
Well, I mean, if there's a concrete proposal and it's going out to the public, and it's gonna be a long time before we have a concrete proposal, but when we have that, and here's what you're voting on, and here's what you'll get, and these are the common questions and these are the answers, that kind of thing, when it's known what the recommendation of the 2 boards is, if they wanna go forward with it. You know,
I
but
think-
then if it's a yes or no question, well, what are you yes or noing about? That, at that point, I would think it would be worth doing the one at that
I mean,
point.
Sally sent me an email, I don't remember when it was, but that we had talked about as at one of the joint board meetings, I think when we formed these committees, that we had talked about budgeting for some of these things and putting some money towards the public outreach or, you know, whatever the committees needed. And I think if we want to put some money towards something like this, maybe we can do 2 mailings and one initial mailing where we're kind of like just trying to get more people involved and engaged and to understand what some of maybe these baseline things are, and not necessarily what the referendum is, but what coterminous means, why we're even like why there was a grant written for consolidation, or some of the like the things that have already been discussed or established for basically years now.
And you don't think that they'll get that from the meetings and the Google Docs?
I
and all
don't
that?
think I think that we need to spoon feed.
Okay.
It's like you said at the beginning of the meeting
disagree.
that if people, it is
but it's
that people
$4,000,
should
it
be
gets expensive.
more
You gotta do 2 to
engaged.
3,000, and
Well,
you
it's
wanna do
probably-
more than one, you're looking at $6,000 possibly in mail.
I guess one thing we'll report back to the umbrella committee, the joint boards we meet, seems like all the time, but we meet and talk about these things. Do you think we're at the point we should say that the committee feels that we should do at least one of these at some point in time? And would they consider putting, you know, funding that so that we can be ready to do that?
I think there's no doubt that we should do at least one
At least-
at some point in time. Yes.
I don't disagree with that because you're blanketing the entire area and it's one way to guarantee it.
Yeah.
I do think that it's gotta be a very surgical thing to what you put on these flyers or the brochures. And, you make a great point, you know, it's definition of terms. I mean, so you're right, you're gonna see it on TV, but you remember, it's really interesting. Who's not getting electronic media? So are they gonna read the mailing, and how educated are they gonna be in the process if they're not following either by the Times, by watching television, and just generally, you know, following on the computer even? So, I mean, the person who you're gonna reach in the mailing is gonna be someone who's probably not been very involved in the process.
Exactly.
And you're gonna need to have a very explicit definition of terms. You have to be very careful not to present a case,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you know.
if this happens after the 2 boards, or they're recommending this proposal, whatever it is, if any, then the reasons why they're recommending it certainly can be put there.
Now we have,
Now, if it's an informational piece before the boards decide what they're gonna do, then I agree with you.
I think we should take one step back and talk again, because in terms of pricing and things like that, like the master plan review task force sent out surveys in the water bills, and there was question about it costing more and whether or not it was the same price to send out these water bills, and so they got it down to a one pager, so that they were only asking 1 page worth of questions, because 2 pages would have cost more. So maybe we can do that, since we do not have a bulk mail permit, as Katie just told us. What we could do is send stuff in the water bill, and maybe that won't reach everybody, but that's not the one we do before the vote that's saturating. That is the one that we could send now, and maybe we can send multiple then, if that's the case. Maybe we can even get feedback through these things. I mean, certainly we need a lot of volunteers to go through if we're getting feedback, but that's.
Yeah, so that'd be, in other
It's
words,
not
instead of doing a
unreasonable.
second mailing, you would consider putting with the water bills something to just as further education,
Right.
and then
I mean, then
giving
again,
them
that's just the
opportunity
village.
to tell them where they can ask.
Or the water
I'm not
district,
quite sure,
so.
not to get too far ahead.
Sure.
How many people do we have on a master contact list via email?
Well, I don't think there is one per se. I mean, there's a lot of people involved here, but we haven't established this is the contact list for this.
That contact list is not, that's just the people who served on these committees.
We don't have a database of emails.
Unfortunately,
That's a
not.
lot of work to do.
Well, it's not only a lot of work, but people have to say that it's all right for you to do.
Well, what you
Well,
would
that's
do is
something
you'd
we would like
put it
to-
actually in the New Paltz Times and say, if you'd like to get on our mailing list for the community outreach program, please supply us with your email, email Larry, I don't know.
No, no.
Yeah, a lot of people would be afraid
Dude,
of that.
I've done
Don't put money.
databasing,
All right, I
and
understand. It's a
databasing is
lot.
an extremely time-consuming
It's boring, but if you
thing.
do it
Boring
once,
is not the problem.
it's time consuming.
Yeah.
What is the problem?
The problem is time.
It's time, it's a lot.
Creating an email list like that is just, I mean, I wish I could say I had the time to create that kind of email list, but I just simply do not. I think if anything, what we could do is, what?
No, I caught myself almost volunteering that, and I've decided there's no way I'm doing it.
Right. Well, I think the way this needs to be done, and this would have been something, and is something that we want to put on our website. And if that contract was, if the contract was administered properly in a timely manner, this would already be in existence. And we want people to be able to sign up on the New Paltz website to receive email notices.
We would need to begin to put that together. It should be
But-
put
but
together in
that's-
town anyway.
That it
We
just
should
doesn't
have that.
exist right now,
Yeah.
because we're in the process of, I mean, there was a contract that was signed last May that just didn't go anywhere.
How many emails do you think we would get a week if somebody wanted to get on an email list? If you put it in the Times and say, listen, we want to be able
And
to.
how
reach
many
you.
would we send to it?
Now, how many responses a week you think we would get? Now, there's 7,000 people in town, right?
14,000.
14,000.
I mean, we can
Say
actually put a
7,000
Google
families.
group.
7,000 or 8,000 tax lots,
Lots.
taxable
Let's give us lots.
But you're right, 7,000 or
Well,
8,000.
there's 7,500 mailboxes in the.
Yeah,
one,
they-
one, two,
So,
two,
I mean,
five,
if you
6,
got a
8.
listing of 4,000, that's a lot to do, but once it's done and it's a list, that list is here for everybody forever.
Well, I think
And
you're
it's
gonna
the
find in
fastest
this day and age, it's not as easy as you think to get people to volunteer to do that. And if you got 200
What?
of them that you could use to
People
send out
experience?
things, yeah. I mean, you can do it illegally, but we're not.
No, I'm just wondering if you got 50 a week from the Times, you can just gradually build
I
it.
mean, we can create a Google group that would be a way to do this, and people could sign up themselves. We would send out the link
That's a
through
great
the
idea.
newspaper.
Sounds like a
Let them do the work,
very
I think
nice.
that's a great idea.
Where you can take advantage of something like Google or Facebook, and there are towns that have their own Facebook page, doesn't?
We do have our own
You have your
Facebook
own
page.
Facebook page.
On this
There's
committee
under two-
meeting,
there's less than
should
200
be on our
people.
Facebook page about this meeting tonight.
It was.
We have a Facebook
Right.
page.
If I could follow Ariana's lead and step back for a minute, it appears to me that what you're doing is very useful. You're thinking, and again, you have a lot of experience, but that's the benefit of having a naive person walk in. But I know you have a lot of alternatives in mind, but for every new person that walks in, while I wouldn't volunteer to do, I used to run we started Friends of the Library at the college. I only had 400 names, and I managed that list for almost 10 years. And
A lot of time, right?
So, but I don't think there are more than 5 or 10 vehicles of communication. That is, you've mentioned the mailing, direct mailing.
Right.
You've mentioned the newspaper. You've mentioned the master list, which is really a mini list of 10 people, or 30 or 50 that are on the committees. And I did 2. I'm hoping for that master list of 4,000, which may be
I like Ariana's idea.
which may be the Google.
That's
Right?
the way to do
But then you have 5 or 6 or 7 ways of dispersing information, and it appears
And
to
the
me
TV and
the TV,
websites.
Channel 23, all of that.
Right.
If that was in a little spreadsheet that allowed you, opposite the vehicle of communication, to look at the cost, to look at the number of humans touched by it, to look at the purpose of, where you see it, this gets back to the mission, how that vehicle contributes to the mission, and whether it does, and so forth, and then some notes. Then, at every subsequent meeting we have, we're able to look down that spreadsheet of 10 or 5 vehicles and say, well, these 3 would be good for that, or all of them would be useful here, or none of these 10. We're an outreach committee, so we might even add under that meetings at Elting Library.
Now, it's interesting, Paul, too, because back to Ariana's point as far as spoon feeding, well, I guess it was my point to begin with, but as spoon feeding, you put at the bottom, if you had to do an early flyer, it's not, I'm thinking of this again, that's not a bad idea, because you can just put it at the bottom, go to our blog site, put your email in, and begin to send this to you.
And that's one
Get
way.
it up in the front of the process. You might need 2 mailings. One in the front of the process to help make it as easy as possible, and then a final one at the end of the process to, okay, this is the final information that you need.
I think that's true, except you have this problem. The second one is no problem, because the 2 boards have decided if you're gonna go ahead, this is the proposal that they recommend.
Might not need a second one then.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but at this point in time, we don't have that. We have a variety of opinions, and it would take pages and pages to put everyone's opinion, and you have apples and oranges, and it might be, you could give some basic definitions of what a coterminous government is and what does it mean to operate principally as a village, and some basic things like that. But otherwise, you'd be making a case for something that hasn't
So we
been
don't
decided
have
yet.
enough for a brochure. We don't have enough
Well, it hasn't
information.
decisions haven't been made to the
Yeah.
point where it's fair to send that out to the community, because
I don't think that's true.
It's almost
I
a
think we're
chicken
getting
and egg.
there on the recommendations of, there's 8 recommendations of the steering committee with the study, and the joint boards have been meeting, and they've okayed several of them, and we're going down, and when we get the answer to those 8, we'll put it in Paul's Times and say that the boards have voted.
But the
These
idea,
things.
the idea of like the definitions thing, where, what does it mean to consolidate? For
Yeah,
people
sure.
who don't even know that we have a village and town government and what part of the community they live in, and that there is a board of trustees and a board of council people. Like, I think that there are people out there who just don't even know this. And so when you say consolidation, people say, consolidate what? Like, what is, and I've been calling it lately, I've been saying, we're trying to merge the village and town governments. We're doing a merger instead of talking about consolidation, because I think the people kind of just turn off and they don't know what you're talking about, and the idea of like a merger between the 2 governments is a much easier thing to digest. And the idea of it being coterminous is just like a whole, I had never heard that word before I was involved in government. So I think that, this idea of having these definitions that could be what we, even if we just put it in the water bills, and okay, so the town doesn't get water bills, so we do some kind of, like modal and have these different modes of communication to be able to reach these people. And maybe we send a mailing to the townspeople who are outside of water districts, and then everybody in the water district gets this same kind of one pager in their water bill, and they get on the bottom of it, like you said, join our Google group, and you can be kept up to date regularly on these things.
No, I think something like that will work. I think that doing the $6,000 or the
I think we
$3,000
should wait for that.
mailing at an early stage, it may be worth it, but getting the content of that mailing and everyone to agree what should go in there.
Yeah.
Based on my going to these joint meetings for a long time.
Oh, they'll have a meeting.
That could be a nightmare.
Yeah, we'll
But
have 3 meetings. Just
certainly
have a
we should
meeting
have it
and
at
we'll
the
put on
end
brochure for the
so
next
that
meeting.
everybody knows what's being recommended and what it means. But there are other ways, and I think the water bills and the paper and the Channel 23, we can
No, I agree
get
with
this
that.
out, and that's what we gotta get charged up on. So, should we recommend to the joint boards that we have obtained funding for one mailing of approximate cost that we've been given so far? Obviously, we have to have bids and such.
You're welcome to
I
address
have a
this.
question in terms of cross-referencing the databases, right? So like you have a lot
Can't have a
of,
question unless you have an agenda. Now you're official, what do you want?
if you have a database of all of the town and village residents, can you cross-reference that with the people who receive, because some town residents receive the water bill, you know, if they have water.
If they're in the
or
water
sewer-
district.
Water or sewer.
Yeah.
So you could figure out who does not get a water bill and then just mail to those people. And then the others you include in the water bill.
I
So
think
your
we
first-
have to find that out because the data processing in these 2 municipalities,
Right, I understand.
not advanced.
Right, but that, it seems
Clearly.
like that would be worth investigating to see whether
Yeah.
Good
you
idea.
could cross-reference the databases, and if it was easy enough to figure out who does not get a water bill, then you just mail, you pay to mail to those people, maybe it's 5,000 people. So that cuts that,
True,
That's
well,
how it costs.
yeah.
well, just that you were here earlier, we were talking about, bulk mailing at some point. We were looking at numbers and based on what the people from BOCES told us about what they send out for school districts. There's a difference if you send this saturated bulk mail, which has no addresses, just goes to everybody's mailbox. It's 8 cents a piece. Whereas if you're gonna put something specific on there, then it's 20 to 30 cents a piece or something. So maybe it's cheaper to do the bulk mailing to everybody than if you're gonna do that, then pick out 5,000 people and pay 30 cents.
That's
I mean,
true.
so you
That's
have
true.
you have to go through the numbers. And see
I think
what
you're right,
it is.
Stu. I think you just stuff the mailboxes.
But are you talking about, you have to identify, okay, so just basically all residents of the town.
In other words-
as opposed to sending it to a specific address.
In other words,
Yeah, I got it.
she tells me, and I only learned this today, so I'm no expert, but there's 7,500 mailboxes in the New Paltz zip code. So if you have this mailing it, depending what size it is, to get it printed and how much postage, then the delivery person just has 7,500 of these and everybody
just
gets
stuff it
one,
in
and
everyone's, yeah, that's
that's,
much.
how
That's
it
why
works.
it's 8 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah, not only that, there's a lot of rentals in the village, a lot of kids, so if you try to put a name on it, they might not do anything with it. In other words, it might not go to the hands it needs to go to, the college kid just might open it up, look at it, get rid of it, you might lose a little impact.
Well, you're
So
not
I wouldn't
gonna
try to
have
put a name on it,
100%
just,
anyway.
just go with the 8 cents and blanket it, it's just get as much information out, it's a moving target when you're gonna do mailers.
The thing is that who are we gonna do this through who has a bulk mailing permit?
Well, worst case, when you're talking about the big picture, you can buy one for a year for $300. So village or the town could buy one. Yeah, that's just a photocopy. with
Right,
notes on it.
you had the vendors you looked at so far? They're-
Well, I
Right
haven't,
here, yeah.
I haven't looked anywhere, this is all information from the, this
Holly?
Holly Brooker, who is the Ulster BOCES Community Relations Department, who does this for school districts. So this is just raw data at this point, but those are three vendors in the area that have this, high capacity sheet press, so they can turn this out at a lower price. They're not necessarily all the ones, but those are three that she had in her records. And nobody in New
This is
Paltz
also,
has this.
I'm sorry, Steve, I'm sorry.
It sounds like it would be a great assignment or task for one of the many committee members who I'm sure will start showing up. It's a
Whoever
great-
has it in his hand.
to, it's like sitting at the end of the table.
Hot potato.
But there's Gateway, I know, has done bulk mailings, the shelter workshop here. And then there's a commercial firm, Newberg Envelope, that I would just add to the list. But it obviously you have time to gather information and gain understanding on some of those details. But it
Right.
appears to me that, and by the way, I listed about 10 different vehicles of communication. One of them is direct mail. This, if we follow your suggestion, might go sooner rather than later, because you were thinking as a kickoff.
We don't have enough information, I
Right.
do agree with Stu on that.
But if it's later, then one has time to pursue that. I still want to anchor my comments tonight in the written mission
Mhm.
will help guide you as to which and how many and when of any of the 8 or 10 vehicles, including volunteer distribution, PowerPoint, speaker bureau, channel 23, the master contact list, the posters, the Google Docs, which sounds great, the local bulletin boards, Facebook, government website, daily newspaper, weekly newspaper, and of course direct mail. That's just what I heard.
Yeah, well, let me clarify the master contact list. What I meant by that, although another idea was floated here, was that this committee have the master contact list of people who are on the committees.
Right. And-
So that we can get in touch with them quickly, if we have this question, it's your area, what's the answer? As opposed to sending out to everybody to tell them what's going
My recommendation would be call that the mini mailing list.
on. Okay,
Because it isn't a master list, but I love the
Well-
dream and the vision of a master list where people say,
Yeah, that's just-
"What
Yeah,
is
I
your
love that
list?"
also.
They sign on in Google Docs, because we can't do it on the town or village, and they begin to build 300, 500, 700.
Yeah.
And anything in town takes about 1,500 votes to get passed, sometimes only a margin of 100 votes. So who are the real voters? And I think they may be the first early adopters of whatever vehicle, and they will respond. I mean, you would
Yeah.
use the weekly and daily newspapers to tell them they can go to Google, you know.
One of the
Right.
things
And
about Google
TV.
Docs is, like, I'm on the Plains Road community email list. And anybody who is on that the Google group, not Google Docs, sorry. Anybody who is on that can email that entire group. And anybody who has that email address can also email that entire group. So this will also, this will allow anybody in the community to email that entire list.
Well, Ariana,
So
I
I
agree with
mean,
you.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
But no,
'cause
But not anybody. I just want to
Set
say
the setting so it doesn't do that.
from, but Ariana,
Okay.
from a moral and ethical standpoint, it isn't anybody. There are hundreds of people who have to go to the library, and that's the only contact they have. So,
Right.
which is why I think this is a healthy list.
Mhm.
And you're thinking of all socioeconomic classes and everything. So,
Yeah.
so it's equal opportunity communication. That's why I'm very supportive of all the work I hear you've done, and I'm impressed. And but I do feel you've got your finger on the pulse. Realistically, it is the men and women in this community and the residents who live here who are most likely to take advantage in this modern age of these electronic and all. But from a moral standpoint, as long as this committee, given its mission, is to make the information available in every possible way, you're doing everything you can through the posters and at the library. I mean,
that's the intent.
Well, we also want to piggyback too on the sports programs in town, whether it's YBA, whether it's the New Paltz Baseball Association. I even think to approach the schools. We don't have an agenda. We're just trying to give information.
I mean, there's no.
They have
scarcity
email
here.
lists. I mean,
There's
they're already on
associations.
file. These should be shared with the town
And
in
there's the
general.
MPCD, yeah.
anybody who will take the information will be happy to
Exactly.
give it to them, you know, it's
Yeah,
not,
I mean, it's just
not
basically.
hard to get it.
Do you, I mean, you may be issuing press releases.
I hope so, yeah.
If you do, then you will need a press release list. Not I won't call it a master list, but I mean, and that is amazingly strong. Once you develop the radio stations and the Poughkeepsie stations and all
Agri
those
media kind of
free,
things.
all those free things where they give announcements and everything. I mean, you will need hands, but the more tasks there are, the more likely that volunteers will be interested and be involved, and then they become the ambassadors
Yeah.
for whatever this
That is
objective
the ideal. That is for sure. I feel like it's been a little bit of pulling teeth for that, but I like your suggestion about the whole mission statement piece of it.
Well, it's got to start somewhere, and you know what attracted me was Stuart. You spoke honestly. I was impressed last night, and I saw this one notice on a blog, this New Paltz blog, which is kind of humorous and fun. I mean, it's a play group. I think of it as, but and I said, yeah, and I think that has merit, and I everything I believed from what you said last night, I see coming true here. So I think it's a good idea.
You could put it on Paul's list too, because like Steve Casa will go to like the morning shows and speak with the host about fundraising.
And Steve's in the YBA too,
Yeah.
so he runs the basketball programs and he's part of the NPBA.
Right, but I'm just thinking,
everybody's
like
got
the
fingers.
morning radio shows would probably love to have someone come talk about consolidation and have the.
That's another advertisement too prior to it though, to get out. This is why the need for the list. Hey, who's gonna, you know, Stu is gonna be on 96.3 from 7 to 7:30. Listen to him on the drive in, and he's just gonna give you information on, you know, on where we are with consolidation and what you need to know.
So, getting back to the agenda for a second, should we, should this committee report out to the joint boards that at a minimum we're requesting funding to send one bulk mail
Yeah.
saturation piece at some point in this process? Probably after they have a specific proposal, if they get one that.
Did Holly quote, is that a hard quote that she
No,
knows?
these are figures based on
What they've sent
information
out.
she's had on other projects. Cause I asked her, well, give me a ballpark, what are we talking about here? So, no, these aren't hard numbers, but they're close enough so that you could do a range and, you know, get a budget for it. And obviously, if it's over a certain figure, we're gonna have to get bids from qualified bidders who can do it. And we know some to ask.
I think, you know, I'm always sensitive to the pushback when you come to ask for money. You know, people can carry it to anything and say, well, you know, you're spending more money trying to get information out than we are saving. I mean, it's just silly stuff, and I don't want any smokescreen coming up on what we're trying to do. So I think, Stu, we should ask, but I think we should kind of say, listen, we want to go forward with this, but it's going to be done, you know, before the vote, a month before, because we're going to need a listing of terms, we need a listing of information to get out to the folks. But I don't know if I wanted to get that loud that quickly. I mean, when would we need to ask? Is this something, when do we have an idea?
I think you have to, it's best to, if it's something that you know you're gonna wanna do, and if it goes forward, you know, to put it on the table so people can have it in the back of their mind, or we're gonna have to come up with $3,000 someplace to do this. And so then it won't be, well, this is the first time I heard about it, I'm not gonna vote on it tonight.
Fair enough.
Trust me,
So
that
sooner
will
the better
work.
then, you think?
Yeah.
And we'll,
Just to put it on their radar,
Yeah,
even if it's
just-
not the
this is-
time that we're asking for it,
Right,
to
right.
say this is something that is coming down the line. You know, maybe it's something we're budgeting for in our upcoming fiscal year. I mean, it's not, you know, maybe
Yeah.
this isn't something that is happening.
yeah, we
even
don't,
the next
we
3
don't know on the
months.
time,
That's
but,
fair.
but put it on the table.
No, you're right.
This
That's
is
the better way
a,
to do it. I
and,
don't-
you know,
I don't wanna
and then
surprise anybody.
the next idea may be another one. So I don't know, does anyone have anything further about that particular bulk mailing idea at this point?
I would like you to just read off some of what you have on that list because I wanted to put it in the minutes.
Sure. Let me answer
Yeah.
your question.
Please.
I have no further questions.
Okay,
Suggestion?
You have a further
I
or
have no further, sorry, I mumbled.
Oh, okay.
I have no further questions.
Okay, well,
If you asked that,
okay, well, I'm glad to have an affirmative answer.
right.
So now,
Yeah.
Does
I-
anybody else, so have you put that decision to bed, or?
as I understand, the committee wants us to put it on the radar of the joint boards, that we think that if this goes forward, that we're gonna ask for funding for at least one direct mailing piece, and it'll probably be in the neighborhood of, at this point, without having bids, but estimated $3,000.
I think that's a wonderful idea, and I would say that it might be a time, if this committee has any agreement at all, on the vehicles of communication. And I will read the list, Ariana, that I've taken, see if I'm right. But keeping them informed of all the steps you're taking can only mean goodness for the 10 voting members and for the larger group of the committee, because you're their outreach committee, and the people who sit around this table, it's like a committee at large. So
It is.
at any given night, we are responsible, and I thank you again.
It's only 2 common denominators here.
Yeah, well, that's good, and you vote,
You're not that common.
and you have a vote, so there's 2 out of the 10 that are obviously going to vote yes. But the minute you go to government officials and you ask for money, and I say this having always served on the volunteer committee, just never being paid, they all of a sudden backtrack on whatever they asked you to do, including be a member of the planning board, and you tell them it costs something. So then they say, whoa, what are you going to write? And how's it going to say? And what does it look like? And then they'll send you out again to write a draft. So you will do that to yourself. You'll say, as you put on,
We're aware of that.
right, and you have to do a draft, and suddenly you find yourself in a position of convincing them, which is not your job, it's
Yes.
to show them their opportunity, and if they like it. But I do think that showing them the outcome of each meeting, the decisions that were made, letting them catch up, letting them see their responsibility, because they'll start thinking, as you have already, what am I going to put in that newsletter? What do I want them to say? Right now, frankly, they should be embarrassed, because they have no facts. They have no. You sat there at the other night and found out it was embarrassing to be Googling for an expert to come in and help us on camera, and you Googled it. I thought that was very helpful. But
Yeah.
here we are, the paid officials of the town, and watch us as we Google who can help us with consolidation. So, let me speak. I really feel that you can do much more than outreach. I feel that you now, as we're going forth to the public in the proper way, will be a stimulus to stimulate the thinking of all 10 men and women who vote and the larger committee. So I'm quite excited about what you're doing. And my only thought would be, in addition to hitting them, I'd like to hit them with the full plan, whatever it is at the given moment, then tell them, oh, and by the way, as a test of your commitment, we need $3,000 so that we can start to gather information and review, because we do see at least 1 printing coming forth, and there might be 2. And then listen.
Yeah, I think so. I had the idea of putting this particular one out because I think if we're gonna go forward, we're definitely gonna wanna do that.
Would you go ahead with that one if they supported none of the others?
Well, they already have supported the others as
Okay.
far as the other kinds of things we're doing.
They
So
know
if-
this list?
Well, I don't know all that's on that list, but they know the thing that was on when I handed it out to you.
Well, I took 3 of them from the thing you handed out.
So they know about those.
Right. But I think it's a healthy reporting back, and it will be interesting to see the reaction. I'm sure it will be positive. I don't
Well,
think
I didn't exactly follow though. Were you suggesting that this committee should go to the committee who could decide to spend the money?
the joint government.
With the joint government, should these guys go with an outline of what would be included in the mailing?
No,
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 So
because they
who's gonna do
can't.
that?
Well,
we don't know what the product will be yet.
The contents of that brochure are still unwritten
Absolutely.
because they're undecided.
Right.
And only the last Thursday night did I see the penny drop for many members, including Ms. Gallucci, who suddenly began to say, well, wait a minute, I don't know this and I don't know that.
Yeah.
So they didn't know what they didn't know. At this point, they at least know what they don't know,
Right.
which is tremendous progress.
Yeah.
Paul, guys, we're above this. We're not gonna be beholden to the town board or the village board to what we put on the flyer, and they're gonna hold money over our heads. If they don't, we will tell them what we want on it. If they don't give it to us, we'll raise the money. Or I'll get the money. No, I'm very serious.
Then I won't be on this committee, because that's not my mission.
I understand that, but we cannot be beholden to other people telling us we are an unbiased organization.
And hopefully they
do
are.
agree
I don't
with
think
you.
politically you just get involved with this, and no one's gonna sit there and tell us, I mean, this committee is always in flux, right? It's my first one, so, but I mean,
And you're
but what
already
I'm
volunteering
saying,
to pay for some.
no, I will raise the money for it, because I am not going to cut deals to what information should be on a flyer that's
Right.
important that the public
Well-
should read. We are an unbiased group.
I think you should, what's the first name again, Sam?
Tony.
Tony,
Like
I
Sam.
think you ought to accompany Stuart and Ariana at the meeting, and as an at-large member of this committee, let them know.
It's not gonna be a political football.
Well, let me.
But
let-
no, because he's
Just
right,
not.
because they will say they're gonna want this draft and
If
they're
I'm
gonna
paying
wanna
for
know what's on it,
we
and they are
can't
going
be
to want
beholden to
it
that.
to be, I mean, certain people will want it to be pro-consolidation, certain people will want it to be anti-consolidation,
We're not a political
and we want it to be neither.
No, but
Well-
Ariana, that's why I liked your idea before of just making it definitions, just
Right.
explaining
Very good.
what's being considered, and here's how we define it.
That's
And you wanna, I think you definitely wanna err on the side of more information than less, or else you're gonna end up like that, land purchase out in Lenape where we got this really beautiful flyer, but it didn't explain why they were even considering buying this land.
So if you go in front of them, and to the point is, if you wanna keep it very clean, not opinionated, these are the facts, straight facts, and you ask for money, and they say, well, we'll give it to you, but we wanna add something? No, absolutely not.
Well, yeah, I
But that goes
think,
against what you're
I understand your concern, but I think if we say that the committee has decided that if the joint boards go forward with this, that it's important to do a detailed mailing of what the people, information about what they're voting on, I don't foresee any problem of them, fighting about the money other than, are we following our procurement policy and those kind of things, which they should pay attention to. As far as whether we're gonna do a mailing before we know what the vote's gonna be on, then I think, I
That's
don't think
fair.
we're ready to
That's
do
more
that
than
yet.
fair, but.
Because then you're gonna get into this back and forth, and
Yeah, we
there's
don't
no
want
good answer to it right now. So, what I propose is that, we go at this joint meeting and put it on the table, put it in the back of their head, that this is, the committee's gonna recommend doing this. When you get to the point where we're ready to move forward, you'll see the finished product, and you'll pay for it if you're gonna do it from someplace. So if you're thinking about that, but we're not asking specifically for your vote on that tonight, but just realize this is coming down the pipe.
I just wanna the committee, you can say no, and you don't need a flyer or brochure, that's fine. But if you begin to negotiate with the committee about what goes on it, that will not happen. You vote yes or no, whether or not you want us to put forth information. You have to trust us to be unbiased in
Well,
this.
there shouldn't be any, they'll see the finished product, and if they see something in it, in the draft that we haven't considered, then, and they're right, then we'll change it. But if that is fine, I'm sure that
Oh,
they'll
you're-
vote for it.
You are already a great politician. I hate moving out of town.
I know, I wish you would stay.
Let me clarify,
Please.
because I just do want to clarify, because I didn't write
Sure.
myself
Bring my
clear.
neck.
Okay.
I said that it was unwritten. If I think of it, and you're right, in definitions, terminology, communication, the more you help the governmental officials in the town and the village understand the vision you have, which is supportive of your mission. This mission, I think they should review the mission to make sure we all know we're on the same page. So if that mission is only 2 sentences, let them see that. Then in advancement of that mission, to accomplish it, one of the tools is this direct mail, $3,000 or whatever. If they ask questions there and you already know answers, and I support the point of, you do have some things written, the definitions, coterminous, whatever, FAQs, frequently asked questions, then you do have work to do in an early adoption. Use that as a trigger to bring in the mail. So I should, but I am more, I'm really excited. I know what, I want everybody to know what coterminous means and why it isn't, people want to know, well, couldn't we do that and couldn't we do this? Why did we terminate the village? Why don't we terminate the town? But they will be the FAQs that start building up on the Google Docs. And then there will be new things to write in 6 months. Because the governmental officials, you and your 8 colleagues, will be making decisions. But you cannot avoid by being, you'll be affected by the inflow of information and the questions you get.
And
Yeah,
I
and-
just kind of drew this, and you can take a look at that and tell me what you think. But having something that, and I guess we haven't officially decided that we would be a coterminous townwide village, because that was part of what Jean Gallucci's question
Exactly.
was. But having something that looks like this, where it's like, currently, the village form of government operates like this.
Right.
Currently, the town form of government operates like this. And if we joined, this is what that would mean. Like, we would move towards townwide,
Well, this is
nonpartisan
what's-
elections.
This is what's recommended.
Right, and that would be the next step. First would be the definitions, purely just like what is consolidation, what is coterminous, like these kinds of things that are just so people can get in their head what the jargon is and be able to speak the language. And then once these 8 points are either accepted or changed or whatever it is, then we can produce something like this. And it could be just the 8 points, but it could be more than that too. If it's things like, things that are inherent in a village, I guess.
One in the paper too.
Stuart, may
Right, exactly. This would be in the paper.
I wonder if we have, I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Okay,
may I answer Ariana's question so
Sure.
that I get that off and if I
Oh,
still-
yes, please
if I
do.
am writing? These were the communication vehicles. There was the whole direct flyer mail, direct mail, 7,500. I had a column here that says how many do we contact, what's the price per contact, whatever.
That's what I'm told,
I
is
like
the
this.
number in the New
All right.
Paltz zip code.
So, weekly newspaper, daily newspaper, government websites, Facebook, Google group, which is different than it's part of the Google Doc idea, I think, the Google group, the local bulletin boards, the posters, the mini contact list, Channel 23, Speaker Bureau, PowerPoint presentations, which isn't.
That comes next.
But somebody's gonna have to do it. These are all tasks for humans. I want somebody's name or a group's name right opposite every one of these, because they're the ones who are gonna have to take this forward. Volunteer distribution, I love the idea, the Boy Scouts, whatever, associations, like the baseball. The New Paltz Central School District came up, a press list, press distribution list, radio shows. It doesn't matter that they're not all equal, but so far, that's one of the things that we've all discussed tonight, and they should know. They should know.
Yeah, I like the layout you have here, and in terms of how many people would be reached, how much it costs, because some of these things are free. And to address the idea that you have a PowerPoint presentation, on the 21st, Sally and I reached out to Peter Fairweather about coming and giving a refresher for everybody on the final summary of the government efficiency project, or the study rather, and how. And to just give a little bit of background of how people came to those recommendations with the 8 points, and to also, because when they merged that budget and showed the cost savings, we weren't eligible for that $1 million at all. But to show if we were to get this $1 million, because I think it's pretty clear that the wording is that we would have to apply and they would give us a certain amount of money, and that 70% of that money would have to go to offset taxes, basically, property taxes. But so if we were to get $1 million, show us what that might look like. And he said that he would be happy to also put together a PowerPoint presentation of the same thing, where we could put it on public access and it would just be the slides, because very oftentimes when you're in a meeting, you can't really see the slides, you can't hear the voices as well. Even if he's mic'd, it's just not the same as having it come up as just the slide on the screen. So he said that he would be happy to put something like that together. So some of what we're talking about is in motion. Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the second suggestion of Gallery, which is that we have somebody who is experienced doing PowerPoint, put together a program, and not only to be used internet, but it's our hope to have the Speakers Bureau and have, you know, volunteers give this program wherever people will have us to go, you know, various organizations in town, and not only at a specific group, but if you notice it, when you get copies of all the back minutes, you'll see there's a list of places in town, just businesses or places to meet, and we'd advertise that on this night at this time, there'll be people there from the outreach committee to put this on and come on down and look at it.
We have a
So-
flash mob.
I
I
don't
I
even
mean,
know.
a dance.
When the weather gets warmer.
They're having one on,
I know.
February
Thursday.
14th. Yep.
Thursday at 3 p.m.
It's a very ambitious, but I think they're great ideas.
okay, so, I guess the only question, of course, if one idea would be for the PowerPoint, you know, have Peter do it, and that's the one we use,
Yeah.
or we have another one that goes on the road, and then maybe we
Give me
need,
your email address.
we need somebody with expertise to put that together, so, you know, media person to do that. So, if anyone has any ideas of that. Is there anyone that doesn't think that's a good idea? I assume we all do, but I shouldn't assume anyone. Alright, so if no one has some ideas, so we'll look into who might help us with that PowerPoint. And then, of course, we need, whoever's gonna do this has to have the technology to take out to the places where we're gonna present it.
Oh, you have my.
I said I had your email, but you can send me it anyway.
Is there anything else on the PowerPoint point? Okay, so that brings us down to, B, is, Ellen Rocco has suggested that maybe to help solidify thinking and get people thinking about this whole concept, that maybe it would be a good idea to get some knowledgeable people together who know what's coming down in the government, to say, well, what would happen in the town and village in the future if we don't have consolidation efficiencies, and we don't do that. And, you know, things that I assume that would give the details about what it's costing for the expenses that are going up for the health insurance and the pension, what would happen if we continue with 2 boards instead of 1, and so forth.
Is that written in here or it's in past minutes, Mr.
No, that's
Ellen
new, and
Rocco?
it's under new business. number
Right, I have it
B.
here.
It's nowhere but what you just heard.
Oh, I see. So you're giving us the verbal report
Yes.
of what Ellen Rocco has talked about. in
Yeah, she
press.
just suggested this lately, you know, maybe that would help people if they realize, okay, all right, what if we don't consolidate? What are the issues out there that these town and villages are gonna be facing?
Okay.
You know, that maybe consolidation would help with.
Well,
You know,
that's
so,
interesting.
and that's just a raw concept, it's not a specific plan at this point. But it did seem to have some merit if you got the people who knew what they were talking about and made intelligent projections and so forth, and that would,
Yeah, we talked
Get
about that
them-
last night a little bit. as
that
far
would have a lot of, maybe elicit more discussion,
We have to be
debate.
careful from an outreach committee, because we don't almost have to make sure we always preface it by saying, these people are saying that, you know, the finance
Well,
report is saying
We're,
this.
we're not
finance
gonna,
committee.
we're not gonna be the ones that would do it, we're just the ones that would orchestrate that it happens, that it gets put on the TV, or
Yeah.
whatever, not, you know, and.
I think there has to be a
That's
certain
not
level,
a-
we have to have a certain level of responsibility of the information out. But I happen to agree with you, Steve, but I just don't wanna be accused of putting out something that is pro, even though it is a very informative, and it could be, you know, making people lean toward one side or another piece of information.
Well,
It
that's
has to
a
be-
good point.
You know, it's gotta be careful, because I think we're gonna run into this quite a bit as
Well,
we go forward, because I think,
There are people with strong feelings on both sides of this, and so they would be sensitive to trying to think that the other side is trying to sneak something
Yes.
in, which is certainly not something we wanna get involved in.
Well, I mean, I don't have a problem with anybody who wants to do this kind of thing. You know, and if they were making presentations of it and there were informed people who were coming up with what our community will look like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line without consolidation. But I don't think anybody that is part of this committee should be the
You
ones
can't- you're 100%
No,
creating
I
it.
wasn't trying
Because
to
I think it's
suggest that
pretty-
either.
It's tough.
Yeah, I think that it's, I mean, I think pretty much regardless, it will end up being slanted.
Well, you know, then one other thing is with Channel 23, there's a policy of the joint meeting, there's a committee of the town and village and the people involved with the Channel 23, and there's a policy about those kind of things. But people could put their own show together and put it on the TV. I mean, all kinds of programming is invited, and it wouldn't have the seal of approval of this committee or
Right.
anyone else to just put it on and people can take it for what it's
Yeah.
worth.
I mean,
It's
Pete
very-
Healy
And then
approached
other
me
people
about-
may wanna come and put their own thing on, that's
Right.
fine.
Pete Healy approached me about doing something on public access regarding consolidation because he said to me, he was like, oh, you're a convert, right? You used to be anti-consolidation. And I just was like, you know, yeah, sure, I would do an interview. So I know that he is looking at doing something on public access that is not really, you know, I mean, he has been a member of this committee. He came to the first meeting of the public outreach, and he's been on our email list since, but he has not come to any meetings since. But it's not that he's not interested in publicizing it. I'm not sure why he hasn't been able to attend. But so I mean, there are people out there who would like to do things, and I, you know, have been in touch with some of them, of course, but.
Well,
Anybody who wants to do something and brings it to the committee to be publicized, I'm happy to help inform the community that it is happening.
well, you know, maybe the thing is that we should encourage, whoever, you know, has points of view and wants to express them to make arrangements with Channel 23. There's a procedure for that. And, you know, we're not endorsing anything one way or the other.
Right.
And they can put it on there and anyone, you know, who has an opinion can make it, and it'll just be clear on Channel 23 that whoever is doing it is their opinion and it's not the opinion of any
You know,
official committee or board.
We have
Yeah.
to be so discerning because you have terms and you have facts that are written out, right? If I drop this phone, it's gonna hit the ground. I mean, that's a fact. So you have facts, you have terms. Now, if you were to report something based on what the finance committee say, you almost cannot even report one thing. You have to give the whole report public, or you have to give the whole, we have to be very careful with a lot of this. It could be anything, I'm just using the finance committee as, but there's gonna be a lot of facts that come down that, are they facts we're gonna be questioned with? Or we have to make sure that we present the entire thing. So it's very, very careful how you present it. Like I said, terms are easy. You know what a term, people
Well,
don't know what the term is, this is it. You know, we have to make sure that we come off as being, you know, if we print one thing that allows someone, let's say, I'll even take it this way, if we print something negative about consolidation and it's factual, well, we had better be darn sure, we don't even, I don't know if you'd even want to call it a factual statement if you print a pro and a con to this point. Here's your thought on it, make your vote. You know, we have to be careful not to be used as an arm either, because people are going to present us and say they're facts, pro or con, and what they want us to put out there. So it's a very, very fine line. I think we have to be very careful. Exactly. I mean, if you print something, I like your idea, Stu, to almost give it to the people to say, if you have a hard point of view, here's your speaker's forum, here's your, go get time on Channel 23, do these things. I don't know, it's just a thought, just to be careful with this, terms, and then we gotta be careful what we call facts.
So I have 15 minutes before I have to be at work, just
Okay.
so you know.
So, all right, so then let's try to move down the agenda a little bit, which brings us actually to the next item on the agenda, and that is the report on the Finance Committee Public Information Meetings. And just to state, there's several of them. This committee is arranged to put in the paper when they are and encourage people to attend. And
They're
as we get,
the next 2 Mondays in February, and then the first 2 Tuesdays in March is an easy way to.
and we don't,
Put that out
and
there.
this committee doesn't say, well, you know, we don't draw any conclusions from it. It's taped, you can watch it, you can come and see it. You have questions, you have a place that you can write your you know, questions on the email, and you know, we'll get you the best answer we can.
And you'll facilitate that through the government websites?
There's a Gmail address, which is,
NP Consolidation Questions. NP Consolidation Questions at Gmail.
Oh, okay, those are where people can send in questions to
Right.
this
Yeah.
committee, okay.
And then we're bound to answer them.
And,
We won't answer them, but we'll get somebody who knows what they're talking about, hopefully answer them.
are you, how will people learn that they can see these streaming videos? Where can they read that? Can they, if they go to the town or the village website, and I understand the town is under construction, but is there a notice that's saying finance committee meetings that have been held, here's, you click here, takes you to YouTube or what,
That's a great idea.
we need,
I don't think we have that.
I think there's a bit of information right now. Catch up, you can watch the last one. I do know how hard it is to watch these, but there are people who do watch them, I hear about
Oh, absolutely.
and go to this, so we can, that's an immediate, it's almost a no-brainer, but it's important, and so you're giving, here's the past ones, come to the future one. It's a wonderful first step from a public standpoint.
I think, we haven't been clear enough probably on how people can get to that. So we need to do that, that's a good point. I think they can do it, we just have to tell
Oh,
them
I'm sure,
how.
I'm sure, yeah.
And encourage them to do that. The Speakers Bureau we kind of touched on, and I think that would be good to do the PowerPoint, because then you know what the task is of what you're saying when you're out there, as opposed to your own bias, as much as you don't want to bring it in there, it could happen. So this is the approved slideshow about what this is, and then hopefully a lot of folks will agree to be part of this and go out and do it, otherwise we'll be at a lot of places.
Yeah, exactly. You throw one, the guy from finance committee does it, and it's very pro. We're not really doing this, we're creating a debate, I guess, which is good, but then someone's gonna create, well, you gotta put out a report that shows the other side of this.
Now,
And you're making two reports.
And as we get further down the line, maybe one of the things we do is schedule some debates to make sure that there are
That's
people
an
on both
awesome
sides.
idea.
It's
There's
an
another one
interesting
for
concept,
Ariana, debates.
and
stage them like the League of Women Voters.
yeah, and we have,
You just-
we're fortunate in having Dr. Benjamin, who will told me he would volunteer to do that, to be the moderator of some things, and he's quite knowledgeable about
Yes.
all of this, but he also can keep things on track, I think.
That's a nice idea.
And as long as
It's an
everyone
exciting idea.
will
yeah.
be civil, which is,
Well, that's
And
what a
always a
moderator
question.
does. Jerry's
I
loves
don't have to
experience. He
have the
knows
police
what to
there
do.
or something, but anyway.
He volunteered, take his over.
Oh, I
Exactly.
have, don't worry. So, yeah, that's another one, we'll add debates to it once we get, when I'm sure that'll be
Very interesting.
interesting, so, and
And
all of
like
these
that.
tie into the use of channel 23, because there's, go ahead.
I just want to echo, I want to do a save as on all of Tony's comments regarding the pitfalls of making the negative case, the what ifs and everything, with regard to humans taking even the well-written mission,
Mm-hmm.
training them, giving them the PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
When I had a job, part of it was influencing thousands, hundreds of thousands of people by having hundreds of people go out throughout corporate America do it within a company, within like GE or Procter & Gamble, and invariably you cannot control the behavior of the speaker. There has to be, and if they're in a training mode or teaching mode, but you go out then in the field across the United States, across Europe, to watch some of the samples of your speakers bureau, my equivalent speakers bureau. And I used to call home from London when I said, look what they did to my song. So it is fraught with danger.
Yes.
And I would trust you to do it. I believe you would go out and present the PowerPoint presentation and with the script.
Right.
And disappoint people because whenever you went beyond your brief, you would say, that is not the purpose of this presentation.
Well, the thing is that you also wanna have a time for questions, and so you
Oh,
have,
that's,
but the thing about questions is then if there's a question and there's a difference of opinion on it, so you'd have to say, well, there are some who say this and there's some who
It's a
say
very
that,
skill.
and,
It's a skill.
and that, you know, and it can be done honestly, I think. But
Oh, it
you
can
know,
be.
It's worth doing, even though nothing will be perfect, but you know,
well,
it's better
it
than
may
doing
cause the
nothing.
committee, well, I go back to Tony's point, it's one of the 15 options you have. And you are endorsing the speaker, that person does come with your seal of approval. And so it'll be a very careful
Yeah,
selection.
the worst thing that can happen to an outreach program is to be considered of being accused of having an agenda, because then nobody will believe anything.
Well, I just worry, Tony's point just resonated.
So
So you have to go to
your
work.
minute taker is leaving, so if you'd like to continue
No,
this
I'm gonna leave with the
discussion,
minute taker.
we're-
Okay.
yes, I asked him for it specifically.
Okay, well, I mean, just to finish up, the last thing here is that, we have this option of the channel 23, but we've only touched briefly on it. We can have debates, we have these meetings, but there are other things we can do. We can put static notices about, all right, this is the Gmail account, call us, we have all these questions and answers and so forth. So for the next meeting, we'll do that. Are there any other suggestions or?
Thank you for your efforts.
Okay,
Thank you, Ariana.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Is there a particular night, we usually choose these meeting times by talking to the village clerk about when the space is available, because believe it or not, there's a lot of meetings that happen here, or different groups. So is there any particular good or bad night for you folks?
Monday, Tuesdays are good nights for me, they're the best.
No, I don't want to influence that. I'll match your needs.
Okay, well, I'm gonna give you an opportunity.
Thank you.
All right, so, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? We'll be here all night if somebody has a second.
You seconded it.
I don't think.
I second it.
The chair should.
8 a.m.
Really?
Uh, it's legal, but
In the process.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I have your application.
Thank you, sirs.
You didn't.